Israel is in a state of war.
Families completely gunned down in their beds.
We have no idea where is she.
As our soldiers are fighting on the front line, but the general perception is something that certainly needs to be fought as well.
Esta semana en News 24, Israel bajo ataque. News 24 en español trae el análisis y la información de los acontecimientos de la guerra Espadas de Hierro.
Entrevistas exclusivas, reportes desde la zona de guerra, la reacción de los países hispanoparlantes.
News 24, el único medio en español que te mantiene informado y conectado con la comunidad latina en Israel. News 24, únicamente en i24 News.
This is Breaking News Edition. Welcome back. I'm Benita Levine. Day 52 of the war. An anxious and emotional time in Israel with delays today around the latest hostage release. The families of 11 hostages notified earlier that they would be released in the coming hours. They are now said to be near the Rafah crossing. The group includes 9 children and 2 mothers. Splitting up family members is a violation of the deal secured by Qatar, Egypt, and the US. Now, the families have confirmed the following: that Karina Engelbart, 51, Mika Engel, 18, and Yuval Engel, 11, are amongst the released hostages, as has the family of Sharon Aloni Konio, who is 34, and children Yuli Konio, 3, twin Emma Konio, also 3. And those 2 families have confirmed so far that they are part of the group of hostages said to be coming home in the coming hours. Now, already, a 13-year-old girl is home while her mother is still being held in captivity. So far, 58 Israeli civilians and foreign workers have been freed from Gaza, having been abducted during the Hamas rampage in southern Israel on the 7th of October. It's believed 178 others remain in captivity at this hour. Today is the final day of the 4-day truce. Israel had made it clear that once this pause was over, it would continue with its operation in Gaza to eliminate Hamas. Qatar and Hamas confirming earlier the truce is being extended by 2 days, an Israeli official confirming as much. The extension would reportedly see more civilian hostages released from captivity and more Palestinian security prisoners would be let out of Israeli jails. Now let's take a look at some of the moving moments in the past 3 days in which hostages have been reunited with their families at Israeli hospitals, scenes that Israel is hoping to see again in the coming hours. A developing story, and we bring you the latest updates as they are available right now. We welcome to studio Colonel in the Reserves, Grisha Yakubovich, former head of the Civilian Department of Kogat in the IDF and an Israeli-Palestinian relations expert, and still with us, our senior correspondent, Owen Alterman. So Grisha, your take on what is unfolding right now. Many games on this day in terms of the list being released. It was late. It included elderly women. It was later swapped, so to speak, for 2 mothers to be included. Psychologically, a mind blow indeed. Trauma for so many families waiting for word. Your sense of what is unfolding as we speak.
I hope you're not surprised, because I'm not. This is Hamas. Sinwar, with his twisted mind, plays with our emotions, with our children, with our mothers, and he knows how to make it painful to us. He knows our society, he knows our understanding and our love to our people. We are a nation that we believe in life, and they are a nation who believe in death. And that's the big gap between the 2 perceptions. So for him, it's simple. to play with the life of kids. You know, I've seen him speaking in Hebrew to one of the tunnels to Israelis in Hebrew. Don't worry, you are here. You will feel comfortable and you will feel excellent here. After he made sure that they will be kidnapped. So you are surprised about changing the list at the last minute, not doing exactly what was agreed upon? And of course, he's trying to show to Qatar that he can stand the pressure. So he released the prisoners from the heart of Gaza, where Hamas fought with the IDF. I believe eventually that the 17 will be released. It means 11 Israelis, 6 Thais, I think, Thailands. We want to see them home, back home. They just declared from Lebanon, Hamas Lebanon. It means they're still coordinated, that they found another 90 civilians who were kidnapped, so they can execute or to extend the humanitarian pause. It's a big question mark about where are the rest.
Well, to that exact point, we've been discussing earlier on in this broadcast, Kfir Bibas, a 9-month-old baby at the time of the abduction. He's now 10 months old, and the latest reports suggest that he has been moved, potentially with his family, to another terror faction in Khan Yunis. You know the region well. What exactly does that mean?
It means that somebody that is a Nukhba terrorist but belongs to Hamas was sent to kidnap an innocent family from a kibbutz. He was supposed to bring them to Hamas headquarters, probably in Shifa or something, maybe a hospital at Quds, or because we understand that hospitals are Hamas headquarters. And instead of doing that, he gave them to a different organization. Why? We would need to check and to see and investigate and to understand why. Is it a spy inside Hamas that belongs to a different faction? Maybe. I don't know. But it means that Hamas are in a problem because they would not be able to deliver exactly what Israel wants. And Israel wants all the kids, all the babies, all the moms outside. And if he will not deliver that, he will be in a problem because Israel will stop believing him. Qatar, as the mediators in Egypt, will not believe to what he says. So this is his duty now to deliver. As long as he delivers, the pause continues. The moment it stops, the war will be renewed.
And what do you make of the extension of the truce for another 2 days? Obviously, it is good news for the families of the hostages. Obviously, it's good news for the hostages, hopefully coming home safely. Talk to us about the risks involved at this juncture.
The process already started. This is the 4th round that they release the kidnapped civilians. They declare that they have 90 in their hands. It means 10 a day, an extension for 9 days. We cannot say no to that, okay, after we already started to do that. So I believe that we extended 2 days. They will deliver another 10 and 10, and I believe that they will ask again for extension until they will release the whole 90.
We're looking at live images on our screen right now. On the one side, Ofer prison in the West Bank. On the other side, the Rafah crossing on the Egypt-Gaza border. We'll be unpacking what is happening on both sides of that split screen a little bit later on in this broadcast. But right now, let's find out what is happening in the United States. A rally in support of Israel taking place in front of the UN Women's Office in New York. So for more, we welcome our senior U.S. correspondent, Mike Wagenheim. He joins us from New York. And obviously, Mike, much outrage over the lack of response from women's organizations and human rights groups since the Hamas terror onslaught, despite the number of girls and women attacked and tortured on the 7th of October, not to mention those abducted, still in captivity more than 7 weeks later. What is happening? What are people there saying?
That's right. The massacre took place on October 7th, Benita, and it wasn't until this weekend until UN Women mentioned anything about it whatsoever. And at that, just putting out a tweet with a very vague recollection of gender-based violence on October 7th, not naming the perpetrators, Hamas, and not naming the victims, Israeli women in particular, taking offense to the lack of respect and the lack of effort by UN Women to investigate anything that took place on October 7th, a lack of sympathy, a lack of empathy. They protested in front of the UN Women's offices this morning. Many of the some 100 women out there today painted their groin areas in red to indicate the sexual assaults that took place on October 7th that have gone unrecognized and unattributed by UN agencies thus far. They say they're hurt, they're angry, they're fearful of the lack of reaction by UN agencies and specifically UN Women in particular. We talked to several of the protesters out there today. Let's give it a listen.
This last Saturday was the International Day Against Violence Towards Women, and they did not speak up. They had all these conferences and roundtables and events, but not one word against these horrible acts that have been just recently on Israel's land, and it's a real shame to them, and it's really painful for us. We stood with the UN women at every fight they had for the Iranian women, for BLM, for abortion rights. We've always stood together as women for women's rights, and now we stand alone, and this is a heartbreaking moment for us.
We don't see this as part of the conflict. This has to be a separate issue. And these international organizations can be crying out for both sides who are hurt in this, but we don't see that. I think it's the minimal, they're doing the very minimal they can do in the midst of speaking about all the other things that are going on, and it's just not enough.
Benita, those protesters chanting out there today, "Me Too, unless you're a Jew," in reference to the Me Too movement, and also chanting, "Rape is not resistance," as there were pro-Palestinian supporters, especially here in New York, claiming that the acts of Hamas during that massacre were simply acts of resistance. We reached out to the head of UN Women, Sima Bajos, happens to be a Jordanian, reached out directly to her personal email address. She did not respond to our request for comment on the situation.
Certainly many questions as to why it's taken so long for any kind of response. It really is unfathomable. Mike, there was startling footage from New York, from the public library where you are. It was vandalized by Palestinian supporters over the weekend. What is the latest there? What can you share?
You have very good taste.
That's right. There have been several acts, not only of violence, but of graffiti and other vandalism by Palestinian supporters since this war broke out. You look behind me here. This is the main branch of the New York Public Library. And you see those tarps up there are covering up graffiti, part of the vandalism that took place here over the weekend. It's no coincidence. This is the Stephen Schwarzman building, a major donor to the New York Public Library, happens to be Jewish, has offices in Tel Aviv, also donated a substantial amount of money to aid Israeli victims of the October 7th massacre. A pro-Palestinian organization noted all that in an Instagram post and tying it to the vandalism out here this weekend. By the way, Palestinian supporters have said they are also going to protest the Christmas tree lighting out here this week in New York City. Not really sure how many fans they expect to win over with that, but we've seen a number of these protests here escalating over the last few weeks in New York and in the surrounding areas here in the metropolitan area, Benita.
Senior U.S. correspondent Mike Wagenheim, live from New York. Thank you so much for that update. Thank you, Mike. And back in studio, Owen, I want to break down something we spoke about at the start of this hour, and that is the two families who have confirmed that their relatives are amongst the hostages released, said to be in the hands of the Red Cross, so to speak, close to the Rafah crossing and heading back to Israeli hospitals, hopefully shortly. Karina Engelbart is 51, Mika Engel, 18, Yuval Engel, 11, and then Sharon Aloni Cuneo, 34, Yuli Cuneo and Emma Cuneo are 3-year-old twins, and their families are confirming that they are amongst the group that
so
are
many young children. Isn't it just amazing?
And so important because they're coming home with their mothers, which wouldn't have been the case earlier on in the day, according to the reports we were hearing.
Right. But again, Israel seems to selectively be enforcing this agreement. On one hand, insisting that the mothers accompany the children today, right, and that be part of the list. But on the other hand, by at least some accounts, tolerating what I think is a very serious violation of this agreement by Hamas in not allowing the Red Cross to visit those hostages who are not yet being released. There are two possibilities. Either A, this is not part of the agreement that the Red Cross gets to have these visits. And we had 2 Israeli government spokespeople on our air tonight who have not repeated that claim that it's part of the agreement, okay? Even though we've had previous statements that it is, and the Biden administration saying it is. So either it's not part of the agreement, in which case we simply need to ask the Red Cross, or it actually is part of the agreement and the Israeli government is not enforcing it. It's a serious issue. It's not getting public attention here. It needs to. But Israel needs at least to police serious violations of this agreement and make sure that there are consequences. So I think it's welcome that the government enforced this clause of the agreement, though, as I've said before, I hope it didn't leave behind, God forbid, Benita, someone who is elderly and really could use treatment in an Israeli hospital, the kind that the cruel choices of this. But the other material clause of this agreement need to be enforced.
And there are 2 more names, families of the Calderon family, also confirming that 16-year-old Sachar and 12-year-old Erez, also part of the hostages set to come back home. You can see the picture on your screen right now. 16-year-old Sachar Calderon and 12-year-old Erez Calderon. Grisha, these are children, young children. One cannot imagine what the last 7 weeks have been like, over and above the brutality of the abduction, the trauma of what they would have seen during the terror onslaught on the 7th of October, the fear and the unknown in captivity.
Well, this is an asymmetric war. We need to understand that. And I want to be clear about it. They are selling or working or playing with lives of innocent civilians. And on the other hand, they are demanding to release prisoners that were judged, caught, some of them with blood on their hands, planned to kill, killed, and they are trying to compare them to innocent children that were kidnapped from their beds. We need to understand that this is not an exchange between prisoners to prisoners. And this is the asymmetry that we need to be aware. But from what I understand, all over the world, nobody cares about it. And we need to be very clear about it. It's like those people, those kids are innocent kids, innocent families that we will have to treat them, okay, probably for the rest of their lives. And they will live in trauma. They are not soldiers. They are not fighters that fought a war. And this is something that this asymmetric war is creating, unfortunately, in our society. This is not something new, but this is our reality. We are facing a terror organization, a terror entity that are worse than ISIS, and they showed us what is the meaning to be subhuman.
And when children are released and their fathers stay in captivity, or as we saw earlier on in this hostage release process, when a child comes home but their mother stays in captivity, one cannot even imagine the additional trauma. Grisha and Owen, stay with us. We've got much more to unpack. Unbelievable situation unfolding as we speak. Let's check in with our correspondent, Zach Anders. He joins us again from Ofakim in southern Israel. Zach, what is the latest? Where are the latest group of hostages? How far are they from getting home?
It does appear that they are in the Red Cross's hands, but this is moving slowly to the crossing. We're still waiting for those images of them being transferred into the IDF, their additional vehicles that they've supplied on the Egyptian side once that true handover can take place. We're also seeing reports that rather than take the vehicles directly to Hatzerim Air Base, and that being a journey by vehicle, that there are helicopters staged at the Israeli crossing that may take them directly to either either Tel Aviv or Hatzerim Air Base, where they're also staging with resources, doctors, and additional psychological staff. It's unclear right now exactly what comes next. This is a new, somewhat new method. The last 3 days of the hostage exchanges has taken place by vehicle. They've been driven to Hatzerim. At least some of the hostages have been driven to Hatzerim Air Base. One of them, that 84-year-old woman with serious condition, was taken directly by helicopter to a hospital. So we're waiting to see what exactly happens there. We have seen more reports that in addition to the 11 Israeli hostages, that there will be more foreign hostages released tonight as well. But like the rest of the world, we're keeping our eyes on the crossing and waiting for that exact moment when we can get our eyes on them and see that they've actually been transferred. And then we can truly confirm that the 11 that are listed have actually been handed over to the Red Cross, and that is the exact number of people, as we were told, and the right people to be transferred today.
Certainly that verification and confirmation so important when there have been so many delays and, quite frankly, tricks being played by Hamas in this process on this day. The truce is said to be extended by 2 days, according to Qatar and according to Hamas, and an Israeli official was reported to say as much. But we are seeing reports that it's not finalized yet. What can you share on that front, Zach?
Well, we're seeing that as well, that the Qatari spokesperson said there was an agreement for 48 more hours. This is going to be contentious because the original deal had very specific names for each day on the hostage release, and we've heard from Israeli sources that that has not been honored. The deal itself, the principle of the deal did not fall apart. There were still hostages released, but it was a more contentious element here because there were supposed to be specific people. We're hearing that, well, I should back up a little bit. We've got the 10-month-old Kfar Bibas and his brother that are still they're still hostages. We can't confirm, but we had heard from several sources that these were two that were at the tip of the spear for some of these negotiations. It was a focal point to try and have that victory of getting the youngest hostage home, and to be on day 4 and have that hostage not on the list. You would have to imagine that moves the next 2 days if this ceasefire does hold and that the deal is struck for additional days, that they will be a point of the negotiations, that they want to get those two brothers home. There are conflicting reports that suggest potentially those two young hostages are not in Hamas's hands, that they could be with another faction in southern Gaza, and that there might be some complications in even locating them. So we're really unsure exactly what the situation is there. We're waiting to see if this does develop and they can come home.
Certainly the whole nation waiting to hear for word on all the children and all the hostages. Thank you so much for now. Correspondent Zach Anders, live from Ofakim in southern Israel. And Grisha, your take on exactly what we're talking about right now with Zach, and the fact that Kfir Bibas has become a symbol of what is unfolding right now, and the thought that A, he is not on the list right now to come home, and B, at 10 months old, that he has reportedly been moved, handed over to another faction, apparently in return for some kind of reward. It's not clear. These are all reports. But in Khan Yunis, what does that mean? Give us an understanding of what it looks like for the future of this young baby, his brother and his mother.
I will start from the end. Hamas made sure that the lives of the people of the northern part of Gaza will be upgraded this winter. So they made sure that they will be moved to the south because of what they brought on themselves, and they've upgraded their houses so they will live in tents. And it was all done by Hamas. Okay, it's their fault. This is the reality, that a 10-month-old baby is in the southern part of Gaza with another 1.7 or 6 million people around him, a Jew among Muslims that hate him, probably underground, or heading to one of the houses in the middle of, I don't know, civilians who surround him, so there will be protection. So so the IDF will not be able to, I don't know, to attack or to lead a certain operation, but this is the reality that he's at. Now, let's not forget, this baby, a 10-month-year-old baby, is one of 161 Israelis, civilians, that were kidnapped by a terror organization. Let's remember the number, 161 that are left there. If you ask me, honestly, we already started the process. 161, it means 16 days. Okay, let's extend the pause up to 16 days. They should release all of them in any condition. And after that, we will have to do one thing. There's no other way. Because if we will not do it, if we will not eliminate Hamas, it will reach to the West.
We're looking at pictures on our screen right now. Shiri Bibas, 32, Ariel Bibas, 4, and Kfir Bibas, 10 months old. To reiterate and make it clear, they are not on the list of hostages being released on this day. This is what we're discussing right now in studio. This family and little Kfir Bibas, who has become a symbol of this unfolding situation, a 9-month-old baby at the time of the abduction, they are not on the list, and according to reports, have been handed by Hamas to another terror faction inside Gaza, and it's not clear exactly what exactly that means for the family, but we can confirm they are not on the list for today. Owen.
Yeah, 2 points what Grisha was saying. Number one, in terms of the extension of the truce, according to the decision by the Israeli government, which must okay the release of, under Israeli law, must okay the release of Palestinian prisoners, they have okayed a truce that can go on, to make a long story short, for 9 days, meaning the 4 days of the initial period and an extension of up to 5 days, maybe an extension of a 6th day, depending on the decision they might make tonight, but no more than that. And then it has to come back to the government for another decision. Now, again, maybe they then extend it further in Grisha's hypothetical, but it does take another vote where there might be more opposition. Second, it certainly seems to me that extending the truce by another 2 days doesn't add much marginal risk for Israel, right? If we're already in a world where we're in a truce, what is the material difference between 4 days and 6 days in terms of prosecuting the war? It seems to me not very much. And in exchange, Israel gets the 20 hostages, albeit has to free 60 more Palestinian prisoners. But at the end of the day, it seems a worthy trade-off and something that's going to be broadly popular among the Israeli public. But once you start to get into a hypothetical of a truce that actually goes on, to take Grisha's hypothetical to the end for another 2.5 weeks, one wonders how the government, how the politicians, how the military, and how the public would see it.
We're going to unpack exactly that in a short while. Owen, Grisha, stay with us right now. We're taking a very short break. When we get back, our rolling coverage continues on this breaking news edition. Stay tuned. Welcome back to this breaking news edition. I'm Benita Levine, and our coverage continues. A developing situation indeed. Israel is waiting for the fourth set of hostages released from Hamas terrorists in Gaza to get safely back to Israel. The latest update we have is that an Egyptian delegation is on its way to receive the hostages. There are some reports that that delegation will meet them inside Gaza. Confirmation from the following families that their loved ones are part of that group: Sachar Calderon, 16 years old; Erez Calderon, 12; mom Karina Engel-Bart, 51 years old; Mika Engel, 18; 11-year-old Yuval Engel; another mom, 34-year-old Sharon Aloni Kunio; her twins, 3-year-old Yuli and Emma. Those are the families that have confirmed that their loved ones are part of the group of hostages said to be coming home in the coming hours. As my colleague Zach alluded to earlier, of course, this all needs to be verified by Israel when they are met inside Israeli territory. That should be happening hopefully very soon. Grisha Yakubovich, talk to us about the significance of what we're talking about. This Egyptian delegation reported to be meeting the hostages inside Gaza, the significance being Hamas is still calling the shots?
This is the fourth round, okay, of Hamas releasing the kidnapped civilians. So the first round they did it at the Rafah crossing, okay, according to what was agreed upon, and then they changed it. So they released, I think yesterday, the majority of the group through Karni crossing from Be'eri, from the heart of Gaza, the city Gaza, and the Israeli-Russian guy with the Thailands through Rafah. And today, if the information that I got is correct, the Egyptian delegation entered to the Gaza Strip to get the the kidnapped inside Gaza. Hamas want to show governance. Hamas want to show sovereignty. Hamas want to show that they are still relevant. This is the risk by extending this pause. On one hand, it's important to save any life. On the other hand, it's becoming, or it will be, more risky to the IDF.
We're looking on our screens right now, live images, a split screen on the one side, the Ofer prison in the West Bank, protest action happening there, as you can see on your screen, and on the other side, the Rafah crossing on the Egypt-Gaza border. And this is exactly what we're discussing, expecting to see the hostages hopefully in the hands of the Red Cross, but handed across to Israeli territory hopefully soon, and then heading to Israeli hospitals. Owen, for those who are joining us right now, perhaps set the scene. It has been an emotional day, day 4 of this truce, day 4 where families were waiting to be notified that potentially their loved ones were coming home. Some changes to that list because 2 elderly people were on that list, and there was a call for mothers and children to be kept together, as is supposed to be the case according to the deal. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, listen, you summed it up. The implementation was rocky. Expectations had been properly set, it has to be said, at the beginning of this process by the Israeli government in terms of what could be expected. This was within the base case, I think, of what was expected in terms of the ongoing implementation of the deal. Because of this, it was held up by several hours. As you mentioned, Mita, to the affected families, obviously it was extremely difficult. But the upshot and the reality is that at the end of the day, at the close of this initial 4-day period of the agreement, 50 living Israeli hostages have been freed. Many children, women, mothers, as you said, have been freed. It hasn't been smooth, but at the end of the day, that core deliverable, if you will, has been made, and it looks as if this truce is going to be extended by another 2 days to free another 20 hostages, which raises the question that Grisha just raised. At what point do the risks start to outweigh the returns, right, in terms of extending this truce? It seems to me that extending it by 2 days, it's quite clear that the benefits for Israel outweigh the risks. But if you could extend it by 16 days to take the hypothetical that Grisha put out earlier to, and it said, in fact, free all the hostages, the hypothetical put out by John Kirby, the National Security Council, earlier on in the evening here in Israel, our time. That means a 16-day extension. And then you do start to wonder whether the risks to the military of Hamas entrenching itself do start to outweigh the rewards. So down the road, there could be difficult decisions for Israeli policymakers and the public. And again, to remind viewers, this has to come back to the Israeli government in 5 days. Should the government want to continue to extend it, would have to come back for another vote in order for that to happen. We're not there yet, right? Today, as it stands, we're talking about a 2-day extension. That's what's been on the table. That's what the parties have agreed to. And one can expect the implementation to continue to be rocky. But on the other hand, those very, very strong pictures and incredibly emotional moments of these civilians, often young children, being reunited with their families. And this remains an extremely popular agreement here in Israel. We don't have polling to tell us, but I think we all agree that to date, this seems like a very, very good decision. Of course, to know whether it's a good decision, we'll have to have more evidence in the month or two to come about exactly how the risks play out. But at any rate, a decision that is popular and popular enough to be extended at this point by 2 days.
And Grisha, more on exactly that point, the security risks. There is no doubt that the nation wants to see all hostages come home and come home safely. Talk to us from a military point of view what that will involve.
First of all, from a military point of view, it's very important to save any life, okay? It's a message. It's something that is built in our values, in our education as officers, as soldiers, to do whatever you can do to save lives. So any price is worth it. We need to understand that. This is who we are. When it comes to the risks, yes, the soldiers are there. The people are free to walk. Terrorists are using their, cars. They collect information, and the moment the war will be renewed, they will surprise us, and we will surprise them.
And as Israel waits for the 4th set of hostages to be released from Gaza and sent back safely to Israel, those already released are spending time with their loved ones and hearing more about what happened while they were in captivity. This is 13-year-old Hilla Rotem Shoshani, released from captivity on Saturday without her mother, Raya, despite the terms that we've been discussing here with Grisha and with Owen of the deal, which clearly states that families are not to be split up. She told relatives that they were held hostage together until being separated 2 days before she was released. Unimaginable. We now welcome Yair Rotem, Hilla's uncle. And Yair, thank you so much for speaking to us. Another level of cruelty, not only the brutal abduction, being in captivity for more than 7 weeks, but then Hilla is released and Raya, her mom, is still being held hostage. I understand it's her 13th birthday today.
Yeah, it is. And as you said, and you just said, another level of cruelty. I have no better words to describe it. What Hamas is doing now. First of all, cruelty, and then it's also a really rude violation of the agreement with Israel and mediated by Qatar and the Egyptians. So we're really disappointed, and we don't know what else to expect from Hamas, really.
As you say, it's a clear violation of this truce deal. Mothers and children are not supposed to be split up. So what can you share about the last time Hilla and her mom were together? We understand the sensitivities around this discussion. What can you tell us about what she has told you when she was last with her mom?
Yeah, I understood that Hamas claimed that they were not together, but this Hilla and Emily told us that they were with Raya, and she told us that she had to comb their hair all the time. But there is no doubt that they were together.
And just for clarity for our viewers, Emily, of course, is the little Irish-Israeli girl. We've seen her come home. We've seen her run into the arms of her father. You're looking at it on the screen. You can't describe it. There is nothing quite like seeing this kind of reunion, the hugging right now. Wow, what a moment that was to see that happen. A father and daughter reunited. And Emily, of course, was at a sleepover with Hilla on the kibbutz on October 7th. Tell us more about what you know about what they went through. What can you share?
Yeah, that's right. She was sleeping over at Hilla's house, and my sister. They're friends, they're family friends as well, and they woke up to the sound of rockets, Iron Dome in Israel, and basically pretty fast the WhatsApp groups in the kibbutz started to report about people's houses burning, people get killed, where is the army, terrorists there, terrorists not in that place, help me, my house is burning, where is the army? And this went like this for many hours, and my sister actually got kidnapped at around 12:05. She sent me the last message. She said they're kidnapping her. I don't know if she knew that before, so she was writing. She felt it's going to happen. And they took them, 3 of them, out of the house, and they went through some neighborhood in the kibbutz until they got on a car. And Hilla described it as, she said there were maybe 10 terrorists with them in the car. Maybe she's overreacting, I'm not sure, but she said they drove really fast with the doors open. They squished them in the car, and they drove into Gaza through a scenery that Hilla knows very well because she grew up in the kibbutz, and we all know it.
And I understand that the children, some of them that have come back, have said that they are whispering now because they have got used to being told to keep their voices down. What can you share on that front?
Yeah, that's 100%. Hilla's voice is really quiet now. She speaks very quietly because she said they got used to whisper. The terrorists told them to not speak loudly, especially at night. They didn't want them to speak at all at night. And in the day, every time they were talking too loud, the terrorists were like hushing them. And so now she's pretty quiet, but I think she's getting used to it, as time goes by.
And if you can share, and I fully understand if you are not able to, what can you tell us about their day in the life in terms of the way they were treated, in terms of how they were fed, in terms of where they slept? What kind of details are you able to share right now, if any?
Yeah, you're actually right. I can't really say anything about it. It's not really important. I mean, even if they would be served Michelin stars food, they're still held in captivity. They're still not in their own beds. They're still threatened by terrorists with guns every day. They know there are bombings around them. They know they went off the kibbutz. They saw houses burning. They saw dead bodies. Some of them they know they are in danger, in life danger situation. So it doesn't matter what conditions they have in captivity. It's still not ideal, to say the least.
To say the least. And of course, that uncertainty of not knowing what tomorrow brings, if tomorrow will come, is just unimaginable for anyone of any age. And to think of the number of children who are facing that darkness, so to speak, right now. We were looking a little bit earlier on the screen at the visuals of you hugging Hilla when you saw her again. The pictures speak for themselves. We can see you embracing her. I don't even know if it needs to be described, because we can see the image, we can see your face, we can only imagine. I can feel the hug, to be perfectly honest. Take us to that moment when you were told that she was coming home, when you knew that she was on the list of people to come back that day.
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, you can't be optimistic until you see her with your own eyes, because we also thought that my sister Aya is going to come back, because the agreement said that. And in the end, she wasn't on the list. So if they do something like that, they can also post a list and not include the people on the list. Who knows what they can do, So you don't believe anything until you see them in your own eyes.
And now that you're hearing that the truce is potentially going to be extended, we don't have final confirmation, but certainly there are many reports. Are you more hopeful that Raya might be home? What kind of pressure are authorities putting on those brokering these deals to make sure that a mother comes back to her children?
Well, to be honest, of course I have hope, but to be honest, I don't think Qatar, the Egyptians, the U.S. is putting enough pressure on Hamas. I mean, if they were putting pressure, so I guess Hamas would release my sister already, because there is no reason for them to not release her other than psychological welfare, being evil, beyond cruelty, as you said.
It certainly is. We cannot imagine what your whole family has been through. And as you say, to think that a 13th birthday was marked today, and Hilla doesn't have her mom with her. It really is unimaginable after all the trauma that she has been through. Very briefly, how is your whole family doing? How are you doing right now and your extended family as you wait for more word and potentially good news down the line?
Well, we are obviously very worried. We want Hilla to reunite with her mother. I don't know if you can see I'm very tired. I'm just doing interviews all day, but basically this is the only thing I can do now is to make the world hear what Hamas does and tell the world how wrong that is.
Yair Rotem, we hope for good news. We're so relieved that Hilla is home to better birthdays ahead in the future. Now we wait for word that Raya should come back and all the hostages should come home safely. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Yair Rotem.
Thank you.
Heartbreak one simply cannot comprehend. It really is too much. And to that exact point, we now have breaking news, official confirmation of the list of the hostages that are set to come back to Israel very soon. And here are the official names. Or Yaakov, 16 years old. Yagil Yaakov, 12. As we mentioned earlier, Sahar Calderon, 16, and 12-year-old Erez Calderon. As the family confirmed earlier, Karina Engelbart, 51 years old, a mom, and Mika Engel, 18 years old, Yuval Engel, 11. Another mother, Sharon Aloni Cuneo, 34 years old. Her twins, Yuli Cuneo and Emma Cuneo, aged 3, and 12-year-old Eitan Yahalomi. Their pictures are on the screen right now. This is the group of hostages said to be close to the Egypt-Gaza border right now, and Egyptian delegations said to be meeting them soon and hopefully bringing them across into Israel very soon, and then they get to come back to an Israeli hospital. We've seen this play out for the last 4 days. We almost know the routine. It doesn't work like clockwork, certainly that we know. But Owen, talk us through what it means, the confirmation. These are the names of the people on the list. A lot of people obviously still waiting for that official announcement that they are included. Talk to us about what is unfolding right now.
Right, a bittersweet routine, Benita, but you're right, it has become a routine, right? A happy routine in the sense that these hostages are coming home. They're going to be getting the best care possible at Israeli hospitals, who have gotten used to, again, in the happy part of this routine, caring for the returned hostages, seem quite capable in doing so. And in most cases, in the 3 previous batches, thank God, most of them have been in good physical health. Obviously, one can only imagine the mental health, but most, of course not all cases, in good physical health and have gotten good treatment in Israeli hospitals. And in some cases, Benita, have already been discharged, showing the extent to which they're getting good care and have generally been in reasonably good physical shape. But of course, it's only bittersweet because, of course, as Grisha mentioned, still 160 plus hostages remaining in the Gaza Strip, in the tunnels or wherever else, still not freed. Presumably 20 will be freed over the next 2 days, with what seems to be the extension of the truce in the making. But even then, 140 people left in the Gaza Strip, many of them without really a horizon to come home, right? The soldiers, of course, but even then, beyond that, the men, there are people who are elderly there. We've seen the health issues that people who are older can go through and come out of captivity with. So the campaign goes on to bring them home, and of course, so do the complicated decisions about how to navigate between the two important goals and essential goals of this war, bringing home the hostages and also winning the war itself and ending Hamas control over the Gaza Strip, how those goals interact, how they sometimes contradict one another, and navigating all of that along with all of Israel's society, Israel's decision makers themselves.
And of course, these conflicting emotions, Grisha, because on the one hand, you've got children coming home, but on the other hand, in some cases, fathers are still being held captive, and it's not clear how long it will take until they will get home. And as we just heard from Yair Rotem, Hilla is back home, and her mother, Raya, is still in captivity. She marks, and I say marks instead of celebrates, her 13th birthday today, because can you imagine what she has been through? And the psychological trauma continues right now. This is all part of the Hamas strategy.
It is the Hamas strategy. We clarified it. This is an asymmetric world built in with conflict, built in with contradictions. You know, there are two goals to this war. One is to release all the people in captivity, and two is to eliminate Hamas. It's a built-in contradiction in those two goals. But I wanna clarify the number, okay, of 161 civilians left in captivity. I got some reports, and the reports say the following. One, we are ready as Hamas to negotiate to release even soldiers, but the price will be different. Another report that says 40 kidnapped civilians vanished somehow. And they don't know where they are. Maybe they want to extend the pause to add more days to find them. Maybe that's part of the game again. But if I'll calculate the 40 kidnapped civilians that suddenly disappeared, okay, they don't know where they are, it leaves us with 21